So, for some people, not mentioning any names, it seems like you learn to knit and then years later, you learn a bunch of helpful stuff you didn't learn the first time. Now, I could send you a way to go watch all my videos, but rude. So instead, I've curated some choice lessons for you that I really hope will save you from those moments of, why didn't I learn that sooner? Thanks, Oscar. I'll put the links to all the full videos in the description box so you can deep dive the tips that made you go, whoa. Needles up. Let's go. We'll start off with a couple of fun magic tricks. And yeah, I'm going to sound a little weird in this video. I was kind of germy that day. Chain plying, or Navajo stranding. I am going to take this ball of fine fingering weight yarn and triple strand it continuously out of this one cake into a strand of what is closer to worsted or Aran weight yarn. So if you have lots of fingering in your stash and you really don't want to knit with this teeny tiny yarn on those teeny tiny needles, you don't have to. Watch this. Here's how it goes. You're going to start with a slip knot. Continue to pull that slip knot out until you have a length that makes you happy. Let's say about this much. So now we've got a long loop. We're going to drop the working yarn down to the bottom of the long loop. See that? We're going to reach through the loop, grab the working yarn, and continue to pull it into another long loop. Now we're up here again, and we're going to pull the working yarn through the long loop and pull it into another triple strand. And then we're going to grab the working yarn again. You see how this is going? I can just keep going as long as I want till I have all the triple stranded fingering weight yarn that I like, and I can just keep knitting with it. See this? This is a cable needle. You know what? You don't need this. Go to the hand cam and check it out.
Here's how it goes. First, 2/2 cable. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put these 2 stitches on top of those 2 stitches. Since I'm not going to knit them, I'm just going to get them out of the way by slipping them to the right needle. And I'm going to knit those second 2. Then I'm going to take the tip of my left needle, scoop those 2 stitches I haven't knit yet, slide the right needle out of all of the stitches, put it back into the stitches I just knit, and then knit the second half of my cable. There, cabled. No cable needle. Want to see it the other way? Let's just purl over here. Now, with this cable, we want the left 2 stitches to go on top of the right 2 stitches. So again, we're not going to knit those first 2 stitches, but this time we're going to bring the yarn to the front and slip the first 2. We're going to knit the second 2, and I know you're freaking out right now because I've got that strand of yarn across the front of those 2 stitches. Don't freak out, it's going to be fine. This time we're going to go into the back and grab those 2 stitches we didn't knit, pinch everything together, slip the right needle out of all 4 of them, put it back into the stitches I just knit, bring the yarn to the back and knit those 2. Ta-da! Cables in both directions, no cable needle.
Now that we're warmed up, let's get serious. This next tip was a giant game changer. It's so ingrained in my knitting now, I don't know how I ever managed without it. There are many, many ways to keep track of your rows. Counters, a pen, an app. But what if I told you there's a way to track rows, stitches, increases, decreases, and all types of repeats, and you already have what you need to do it. The magic solution to all of this? Running markers. A running marker is nothing more than a strand of yarn that you weave in and out of your knitting as you go. No batteries, no clicking, just scrap yarn. This is my running marker stash. Here is a rapid fire list of what running markers can do for you. Count rows accurately. Track pattern repeats like cables or lace. Multiple repeats. You can keep tabs on shaping increases and decreases. You can measure tricky areas without relying on rulers. And the dreaded at the same time, where any combination of those might be happening all at once. If you need to seam two edges together and you run a running marker flipping in and out every 5 rows, you'll have a great visual to help you join that seam evenly. You can use it to help pick up stitches evenly around an edge, neckline, sleeve, front of a cardigan. If you just set a running marker about every 10 stitches or so to break up that pickup edge into manageable parts, it will make picking up stitches along that edge super easy. And, of course, for easily measuring your gauge on your perfectly knit and blocked swatches. Now let's take a look at how to put them in and use them. Running markers are ridiculously simple. Really, all you're doing is taking a contrast strand of yarn and you're going to drop it into your work between 2 stitches. You get to decide where you want to put it. And then you're going to knit rows. How many rows you knit is entirely up to you. I usually like to knit 5 if I'm just counting rows, but I will knit other quantities of rows depending on what I'm tracking. For instance, if I'm tracking a cable repeat that's every 6 rows or every 8 rows, I will only flip my marker every 6 or 8 rows. Or I might be tracking increases or decreases every 4, 6, 8, 10 rows, and I will flip my marker according to those decreases. So here it is. How do I know when I have knit 5 rows, Nicole? Here's how you know. You pull these stitches apart and you count the strands in between them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those strands are called courses. And as you can see, this strand at the top is connected to the stitch that is on the needle. So the answer to that question is yes, the stitch on the needle counts. That top strand is the stitch on the needle. So in this particular case, I have knit my way back to the same space where I first dropped my running marker, and I have knitted 5 rows as we just counted. So all I'm going to do is flip my marker to the front and carry on knitting rows. That's how you use a running marker vertically. I want to give you a quick demo of how you can also use it horizontally. All right, let's pretend we are about to cast on 300 stitches. Now, how many times have you done this and gone back and recounted those stitches over and over and over again because you keep losing track? Watch this. It will never happen again. I'm now going to just quickly cast on. That's 10. I find it easiest to do this in 10s. You can do it in any breakdown you like. And then all you're going to do is drop that marker between the needle and the yarn, and then carry on doing another 10. And then you take the marker, swing it forward, drop it between the needle and the yarn, and carry on again. You only ever have to count to 10. 10, 20, 30. I already know I have 30 stitches. It's an accurate count. I do not have to go back and count these stitches again. That horizontal marker in the cast on makes me so happy. I can't even. Now, Ravelry. This website is a powerful source of information and inspiration. I have made 3 entire videos jam-packed with all my best tips for getting the most out of Ravelry. But today, you're getting the one that has saved me time and again from making a big mistake. There's a really good chance that you're not aware of exactly how useful your Ravelry account can be. And I have one particular tip that is going to change how you decide what to knit forever. Thea Coleman's Dark and Stormy, out of these 555 patterns, is the one with the most projects. Let's go in and take a look. We could scroll down and get all excited about this project, and we can click on the photos and look at, oh, how cute. That is totally something I would wear. So cute. Lots of pics of the details. It just looks amazing. It's beautifully styled. Here it is. I'm taking you to the tip right now. The one that you came in here for like 20 minutes ago. We have now fallen in love with the fantasy of this beautiful photograph. What we want to know is, how does this pattern knit up in reality, and what does it look like on other shapes of humans? In particular, what does it look like on a human shaped like you? So here's what we're going to do now. Click on this link that says 1907 projects, and we're going to go in and look. Now, we're not in here to critique anybody's knitting. What I want to see is if, for the most part, they seem to have had a lot of success. The second thing I'm going to keep an eye out for is anybody modeling this pattern who is shaped like me, so I can see if this pattern is going to flatter my body shape. So let's scroll down and take a look. This finished project looks fantastic. These are all looking really nice, and it appears that it's looking good on everybody who's modeling it. Now, I know what you want me to do is go and find a pattern that looks terrible, a pattern that I can look in the projects and make negative comments, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But I'm going to tell you right now that doing this step and going in and browsing through the projects with a critical eye and looking for any of them that are on a body shape like mine to see how they look has stopped me from knitting many patterns. I have found too many times that I have clicked through to the projects and seen that the sweater looks absolutely nothing like how it looks in that posed photography shot when it's shown on actual real knitters. Am I making sense? Okay, to be fair, the models in some patterns may also be real knitters, but you get my point. Did you know this tip already? Do you use it always, every time before you commit to a sweater? Yep, me too. We'll finish up today with one of my very, very favorite topics that could have saved me an unfathomable amount of time and aggravation. Yarn substitution. There is no, you can't use that yarn. There is only, you can't use that yarn and get that result. If you want your project to look exactly like the pattern's hero photo, use the exact same yarn the designer used. Why? Because that yarn was chosen for its specific properties. But let's be real, sometimes we don't want to or can't use the recommended yarn. The goal of yarn substitution isn't to just replace the yarn with something else in the same weight, but to find one with similar properties so that your project turns out how you want and not what happened here. You're going to need to consider weight and gauge, fiber content, texture and spin, drape and elasticity, and durability and warmth. Look at the recommended gauge and needle side on the label, but don't stop there. You're going to need to swatch to see how that yarn behaves. Fiber matters. That wool gives it that bit of spring, and there is some definition, a tiny bit of halo. Very light, not super drapey. In contrast to that, this 100% alpaca has no bounce or spring at all, which automatically means it's going to be very drapey. Do you want crisp pop out cables or softer, meltier cables? The yarn you pick is going to make that difference. Ready for a real life example? Let's talk about Love Note by Tin Can Knits, one of my favorites. It calls for fingering weight yarn held together with a mohair silk blend, like everything does these days. Knit at an open gauge of about 16 inches per 4 inches. You can see in this swatch that the fuzzy halo fills in the gaps and gives this sweater its signature cloud look. This very, very open lacework doesn't look quite so open because of all that halo filling it in. Now, here's what happens when you substitute a smooth DK weight yarn and knit it at the same gauge. The fabric is kind of limp, drapey, less elastic. There's very little elasticity in this, actually none in this yarn. And it just doesn't have the same lush texture that this does. Okay, Nicole, so how do I choose the right yarn? My favorite tool, and the one I go to first when I need to swap out one yarn for another, is yarnsub.com. This is yarnsub.com. We're going to search for Barocco Blackstone Tweed, and we're going to find some alternative yarns for that. Here are the qualities that YarnSub is looking to match. Aran, weight, wool, mohair, Angora, a gauge of 18 stitches to 4 inches, the 119 meters or 130 yards, hand wash care, and the price, you could see it was a little expensive for $signs out of 5. Let's scroll down and see what it suggests instead. Here is a Neuro Nubby Tweedy. It's a 93% match, which is a good match. Cozy cotton. Now this is interesting. An exact match to gauge, also made from non-superwash wool. Warmth, drape, elasticity, and durability and softness are a reasonable match with the original. Here's a mohair tweed, which is a good match. There's another wool cotton blend, which is a good match. Another Noro. Sunday Knits, Brigadoon 5-ply. You're getting the idea. You can see here how useful YarnSub is for getting you really quickly and easily to those yarns that are going to be very close to the one that you need for your project. I know you want to support your local yarn store. I get that. And maybe that's your only option. Here's my suggestion. Either go online and find the appropriate yarn and purchase it that way, or pick another project for which your local yarn store carries the right stock. I know that's tough, but if I could go back in time, I would not have purchased that yarn. I would have gone elsewhere to find the right thing. Honestly, that was one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my knitting career. Journey? Life? I made this video because some lessons take years when they should have taken 5 minutes. If you've got one knitting lesson that you learned way too late, put it in the comments. You may save somebody else, maybe me, from repeating it. If you had a bit of fun with me today, please boop that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, forward this video to a friend. All of it helps the channel. I say goodbye. Oscar says goodbye. Felix is off wreaking havoc somewhere. Needles down, and we'll see you next time for some more helpful knitting, whatever. Bye.